Good afternoon to you. Mark's out of HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. It's now Monday, July 27th, 2020. I'm just finishing up my few days out in the desert southwest where I was out catching the monsoon, which really wasn't that active. The best day was Friday when I got here. Spent the last few days doing other studying of the burn scars up here, and I captured some really cool drone video, and I'll make that public on YouTube a little later this afternoon. Put it on Twitter earlier and shared it with our patrons, and I'm getting ready to upload it and put it onto YouTube after this update. Anyhow, it is update time. I'll get this done and then head to the airport here in Phoenix, Arizona, and head back home to North Carolina. So let's start off with a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies for, well, it gets updated once a day, so this is yesterday, but we'll call it today. That's fine. The cool Pacific continues in the equatorial region relative to average. The Gulf has cooled off just a little bit, and we can owe that cooling to Hannah and its impacts to churning up the water there. And then in the main development region, of course, still quite a bit above the long-term average. And speaking of that, this is really ridiculously warm compared to the long-term average. And wait till I show you the actual sea surface temperatures. In fact, let's just do it now. I don't know that I've seen in July the water temperature. This is the 26 Celsius isotherm right there. That's about 80 Fahrenheit, all the way up to the coast of Long Island. I don't think I've ever seen that, honestly. Can you? Do you remember in July? I mean, I can't remember that I've ever seen it that warm. This is just incredible. And look down here along the Gulf Stream, 30 Celsius all the way as far north here is about 37 degrees latitude. There's 36 right there. There's 38. Just remarkable, the warm water that's lurking off of the East Coast. And if we were to get a hurricane to come up the East Coast, especially one moving quickly, it would certainly be able to retain a lot of its energy if other factors in the atmosphere allowed. Just incredible what we're seeing here. And those anomalies off the East Coast are 3 or 4 degrees Celsius warmer than average. That is really, really remarkable to see and concerning as we go into the peak months of the hurricane season still in front of us. In the meantime, in the Gulf of Mexico, again, the incipient disturbance that eventually became Hannah moved across through this area, and then, of course, made landfall down here in southern Texas there in the King Ranch area. And all that agitation of the storms and the cloud cover, and especially through here, mixed up the water. But don't let these blues fool you. These blue colors in here, and then especially over here, you think blue, ooh, it must be cold. Well, no, not really. Even though you have the dark blue in there, we look at the legend down here, and that's why legends are so important on thematic maps. You look and you see, well, that's still at least 28 Celsius. If we just split it right down the middle here, there's 27.9, 28.3, I think that says, Celsius. So we're talking still 81 to 82 degrees. So the water is not cool to where it can't support future hurricanes. And watch how quickly these disappear. These little blues that are in here will get reversed, and the water temperatures in the Gulf will rebound very quickly after Hannah's passage. Speaking of Hannah, the leftovers of that energy is now tucked over northern Mexico. Tremendous flooding that took place here in South Texas along the Rio Grande. Yes, it intensified into a solid hurricane. It had a beautiful eye with it, but the results here are anything but beautiful. You need the rainfall, yes, but this has been a lot. People without power, people dealing, of course, with the pandemic and all the issues related to that, the anxiety and the other things. And then on top of this, we had Hannah. And we're still seeing flooding concerns down in this region and into Mexico as well. Elsewhere, of course, a lot of attention on 92L, but I think that's going to really back off in the coming days, and I'll show you why. Interesting how things change Hannah was not forecast early on to be a hurricane by the National Hurricane Center. Some of the models were aggressive, others were not. This looked like it was going to be a shoe-in to be a problem. A lot of buzz about it the last few days. And now I think that's going to get backed off as we move forward, and I'll show you why. All right, so looking at the vorticity, there's the energy associated with the remnants of Hannah still hanging out over northern Mexico. Tiny little piece of energy here off the southeast coast, but no real impetus to get it to bundle and really fire up in the next several days, it doesn't look like. And then with 92L, there's certainly a lot of energy available. A very big envelope, expansive envelope of heat and energy, but the biggest detriment here still is the dry air. The Saharan air layer, very prevalent. It's a little bit farther to the north over here, what's coming off Africa, but elsewhere out over the tropical Atlantic. And when you see it kind of, and let me switch this over to the white, it'll just make it pop a little better. When you see the Saharan, come on, don't do that. White, please. Thank you. When you see it get enveloped around a circulation like that, it's no wonder, and especially the little speckles in here, this huge piece of energy is wrapping that dry air in there. You know what I'm saying? It has plenty to feed off of. And I think one thing we have to keep in mind as a reason to this, it's still only late July. We still have about 3 weeks until we would expect a significant reduction in all of this. It lifts farther to the north. These dry air intrusions come off more like up here. The tropical waves come off to the south, and they are much more easy to take advantage of moist conditions. And when that happens, it's climatology. We don't have any dry air to speak of, not like we're seeing in the eastern Atlantic over the Gulf. And there's a little bit of the Saharan air layer here in the western Atlantic. But honestly, this is very overpowering. It's drier, it's warmer in the mid-levels, and that is a big hindrance to these large tropical waves to develop. So what happens with these? Well, they continue to move on. This will bring some weather to the islands over here, and it still may develop, but it doesn't look like the big, oh my gosh, here comes our first long track hurricane of the year any longer. Now, it's interesting that could change back, yes, but it's not looking very promising right now. So I think we're going to have a little bit of a reprieve after dealing with Hannah before the real big-time action starts later in August through October. That's my feeling on it now. We'll see how that changes. So let's take a look here if I get my color code back. There's the envelope of energy in the GFS model. That's what we're looking at, GFS. 850 millibars in the atmosphere. That's about 5,000 feet or so high. This is just one of the layers. There's another piece of energy coming off there. And so plenty to watch for sure. But watch what happens. If we move this out into time, both of those areas never really consolidate. You see the vorticity stays stretched out here. It never really comes together and forms a circle or a ball. There's lots of energy, yes, lots of heat energy, but just it's not able to bundle up. And it approaches the islands there. This is about 72 hours out here. So yes, you folks in the Virgin Islands, the Northeast Caribbean, we're thinking Guadeloupe, points north and west from there, Barbuda, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, as I mentioned, Antigua, however you say it. Tropical wave of pretty stout stature is what you should expect at this point. Maybe a tropical depression. This is 3 days out, but unless the GFS is simply out to lunch, and the Euro is showing the general same thing, and the other intensity models really aren't doing much with it either. So all of that tells me, and you just go look at this and say, well, it's just too much dry air around. It's not looking too bad as this passes through the eastern and northeastern Caribbean. But that being said, as this impacts looks maybe like Puerto Rico as well, It could bring a lot of rain and maybe a name storm at this point. This is now 5 days out. We'll just have to wait and see. But it doesn't look nearly as menacing as what we saw a few days ago. You can see this trough coming off the east coast with this energy cutting into the Atlantic ridge out here. And if this even were to develop, let's just pretend that this became a strong hurricane through here, it would turn north and go on out to sea almost certainly because of this big weakness that has opened up at this time frame over the northwest Atlantic. I think that's going to be the pattern here over the next couple of weeks. What happens in August, September, and beyond, we'll have to see, especially later in August. But you notice over the next 5 days, no areas in the deep tropics that bundle up that energy and actually focus it and become anything we really need to worry about. So a little bit of a break here, perhaps. We'll see. I don't want to get overly optimistic. People can hype up when something is going to develop, and the hype train leaves the station full steam ahead. The same can happen if you downplay something and under forecast what might happen. Keeping people on their toes and being aware is very important. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to underdo it. Just kind of show it like it is, and that's what we do here. And so far, it looks promising for not much impact overall over the next several days. So we'll see how all that pans out. Alrighty, don't forget, I am on Twitter. I talked about that a moment ago, the video of the interesting, it's almost like an ash dust devil, or ash nado is what I call it, but it's not a tornado. You'll see I'll upload the full video to YouTube and make it public here in just a little bit. Speaking of YouTube, follow me on YouTube. That's where you're watching this, right? And subscribe to get notifications for more videos. I appreciate that. And then the ultimate is to become a patron on Patreon. All kinds of benefits. And check that out, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. It is our patrons that enabled me to be able to come out to the Southwest and do what I've been doing the last few days. So it absolutely makes a difference, and I appreciate that. All right, got to go so I can get ready to take the rental vehicle back to the rental place and get on a plane and get back to North Carolina. You guys have a great rest of your Monday. As always, thank you for tuning in and trusting me to provide you this info. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.